In this video, we are going to write a market assessment time series market data, using the Python SDK. The data written will be then visible in the UI, or queryable via SDK. For more information about the UI, and the different types of market data extractable, you can check the UI tutorials. For the writing of data, we need to import the core Artesian libraries like Artesian configuration, granularity, and market data. We also need to import some support libraries for a better support of date times and time zones, like datetime and dateutil. Once we import all the necessary libraries, we can configure Artesian by inserting the necessary link and our API key, as showed in the Python environment setup tutorial. In order to be able to manage the data in Artesian, we need to instantiate a market data service, and pass the configuration as parameter. The second step, when we want to write data in Artesian, is to define the provider name and the market data name. This is done by setting a market data identifier, which is the object that contains the core market data information. In our case, the provider will be called Python SDK. Because we are writing a market assessment time series, the market data name will be market assessment right. After this initialization, we can start to write the basis for our market data, based on the necessary attributes. The provider name and the market data name can be recalled by the market data identifier previously defined. The original granularity, in our case, will be day, and the market data type, for us, will be market assessment. Then we need to set the original time zone, set in this case, and lastly, we can define the tags. The tags are not mandatory but are important to refine the research in the UI. In our case, the classification will be tutorial SDK Python value 3. Now that we set the basis for our market assessment time series, we need to check if this time series already exists. The check is done using the provider name, and the market data name that represents the unique identifier per each market data registered in Artesian. If it exists, the system will return all the metadata associated with it. If there is no matching, it will be created via the command register market data. We can now proceed to insert our values in our market data. We have to use the market data identifier in the original time zone previously defined. In the rows definition that we named market assessment, we need to specify a tuple of values, given by the date time and the value associated with it. In our case, this market data will contain values for February and March 2021, predicted on January 1st and 2nd, 2021. These values are just an example based on the daily granularity, so we need to insert the open price and close price values. Other values to insert for the write of a market assessment time series can be the settlement, the high market assessment price, the low market assessment price, the volume paid, the volume given, and the volume. The IntelliSense will guide the compilation of these values. The downloaded at is more a metadata information. It represents when the data has been generated. The last step of this write is to upload the data in the system with the command upsert data. Unless there is an error in the writing of the data, we have no results in the terminal, but we can check in the UI, or extract the data generated via code. Just for simplicity, we will check the data in the UI. On the UI, we can select on the left side of the screen the type of our market data and see all the market data available in Artesian. By selecting market assessment, we will reduce the menu options and see all the providers that have market assessment market data. We can see our Python SDK under provider name and also our tutorial SDK Python tag. If we click it, we can see the market data we just created.